Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today I'm here with one of my favorite people. This is Rod. He's with Utah Wildflower Company. It's a xeriscape company. He's a contractor that I use for my landscape design. So I think I've talked to you guys before about that I'm a landscape designer. I do consults and designs. And a lot of things my clients ask me is, once the design's done, where do they go from there? How do they know if they should do the install? How do they know when they get, when to get a contractor? And then how do you choose a contractor? Personally, I'm biased. I say just go with Rod, and then you're all done. But let's hear a little bit about you first, Rod. So who are you and what do you do?
Our company is called Utah Wildflower Company. What we specialize in is just xeriscaping. So we used to be a regular landscaping company, but we just want to focus on one thing and try to do it really good.
Why? Why xeriscaping?
We noticed the demand of it. I think, remind me if I'm wrong, but maybe 2020 we had a really popular year for droughts and how we lost so much water. And we just felt the need to kind of step up and try to just focus on one thing. I think we can get away with a lot of things here. It doesn't have to look like, I don't know, I don't want to shun down Arizona, but we have good weather. We have good weather, so we can get away with a lot of colors, different materials, and we fell in love with it. So
we'll talk a little bit about when you need to look for a contractor in a minute. But when people look for a contractor, what do they need to look for? What are the important things, when hiring a contractor?
There's a bunch of things. I mean, when looking for a good contractor, like we were saying in the beginning, it's become really popular nowadays. So I believe most of your regular landscapers don't really know how to exactly or be water wise. They know how to install a good lawn, they know how to grow grass, cut grass, de-weed, but focus on xeriscaping, it's a little bit difficult to actually save water. It's not difficult, but it's different.
The principles are different.
The principles are different, yeah. It's not, I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it's different. I like to be honest with my clients. Sometimes for the purpose of educating people is that you don't want to avoid certain things. Maybe a contractor can give you a much better price.
Yes.
Than us, and it's a free market, so it's competition. It's good, but there's certain things you don't want to avoid. Like when it comes to ripping grass off, we've noticed when we used to do it by hand that you don't really go as deep. And I mean, you can save, as a contractor, you can save a really good part of your budget doing so and not getting the right machinery. But your probabilities of the grass coming back up and overtaking your lawn is just pretty high. So that's the biggest thing. If they were not to use us, we still like to educate people and saying, don't avoid this part. So some contractors, when looking for one, if they can give you a really low bid, I would focus on, are they doing this by hand?
Yes.
Are they doing this the correct way? And this is what I was talking about in the beginning, is there's a very specific way of doing things.
Okay.
But something else that I could speak on that is, I would check with the reviews.
Reviews are a big thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Although some people can write their own reviews, but reviews are huge.
Well, you can ask for a reference.
References is great.
Yeah, you can ask, can you give me someone's number from the last project? Or can I go see one of the projects you've done? And I think if you call another neighbor, they empathize with you pretty well and saying, yeah, thank you for calling. We've had great experiences with that. They'll call them and they'll be honest about our work. Sometimes it's a mixed review, but that's in itself good as well.
Because then you learn.
Yeah, that's great. That's those two ways. Websites, if they're within the Better Business Bureau as well, that helps a bunch.
Good.
Websites like Utah Water Savers or Localscape, those are really good websites that you can check in and see if the contractor is legitimate or not. But yeah.
Well, some of the first couple of things that I always ask about, and I don't know if you think this is important or not, I'd like to hear your opinion, but my first question is, are you licensed and are you insured? Do you feel that's important, and if so, why?
Yeah, that means just going the extra. I mean, you should be doing that right away. Everyone should be licensed and insured, but I mean, we like to be transparent. We know our competition, we know landscaping. Sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
And that's just fine if it's a little project here, or we're just doing this in specific. But having a license and being insured, it just means you're going all the way in. You're not skipping steps, you're not skipping the hours of the course and the training. And that will come in handy when really going into your lawn and ripping out things, and it can be you're working with machinery. That's when it's important.
Okay.
That's when it's huge. I mean, we're honest. We know how the world works. Landscapers sometimes are not insured, and that's fine if it's a small project. If you're moving machinery, if you're ripping out things, you're getting close to your main lines, gas lines.
Oh yeah.
So then it becomes, yeah, you want someone that's licensed and insured. Let's say they hit something and then they just disappear.
They're not insured.
Yeah, they're gonna.
I've seen it. They're
gonna move and disappear. So that's when you don't want to avoid that step.
Yeah, great. And you're licensed and insured.
Yes.
And you have experience behind you.
Yeah.
This is why I like Rod. Okay, so let's move into the next question. So the next question is, how do you know if you actually need to hire a landscape contractor? And I mean, this is kind of a weird question to ask you because you're a landscape contractor and you're, of course, I can do it. But I know that there's times when you go to, you meet with a homeowner and you're like, okay, this is something that you can do. How do they know?
Again, we're honest. Sometimes when we see the yard and they start talking about, oh, you just clear out everything. Later on, I want to bring boulders. I want to have this installed. I'm going to install a retaining wall or anything like that. We like to try to convince them to get us to do the job.
Why?
Just because sometimes they think they can move those boulders around, and you really have to get a machine to dig them up. I mean, if they plan to have a machine and everything and they know what they're doing, we step away.
Yeah.
But if they think it's going to be an easy job, we like to say,
when you know the details involved.
It's not supposed to be that easy. Okay. There's certain moments to contradict that. There's certain moments we come in and they've done the majority of the work. So they ripped out the whole lawn. They've installed, or they bought the gravel. They have everything ready to go, and they just want a professional to kind of go in when they've already done the really tough part of the job. Yeah. So I wouldn't be intimidated by kind of suggesting, try it out, plant some stuff. I mean, you're gonna work with this forever, so might as well learn the whole process of it and get really into your landscape. You learn how different things grow.
I love that. So there are times when people can do it themselves, but there are other times when they should be hiring a contractor.
Yeah.
The heavy work, especially the retaining walls. I don't like seeing homeowners who have no experience trying to do retaining walls.
Yeah, that's when you have to get machineries. You have to get an excavator or some sort, and that's when it becomes a little bit complicated, and that's when you want someone that's licensed and assured to do that. But like we said, yeah, sometimes you can do it yourself, and it's a nice little process to kind of fall in love with. So.
Okay, I love it. So talking about processes, we are here at a property that I helped you with. Yeah. I designed it, you installed it. When was this one installed?
I want to say July.
July, okay.
So a hot month to install landscape, and we'll be showing one that didn't make it, and we're going to change.
Yes.
But
let's go through the process first. So,
okay.
So this is the property. I think it turned out really beautifully. I love it. Design is important, right? Can you talk on that really quick? Why is a design important first?
We worked with and without a design, and I'll take a design every single time, because you have things spaced out. Emily, you design everything with the amount of sun we're getting, similar water needs, so it's pretty simple for us to kind of come in and say, okay, all these things are going to grow well together. You can have all season coloring, and we can pretty much be hands off when it comes to that and rely on you and kind of know everything is going to complement each other pretty well.
One other question I had about that a lot of clients ask, and that I've really appreciated that you do, is especially if a client comes in and wants a full design, but they don't really want to install the entire thing at once. Have you been able to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great way of getting started on your maybe intimidating project, and you can go step by step.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're looking to adjust it to your budget, you can have the landscaper do this part that you don't feel comfortable doing. But all these things in the plants, with the name of the plants, you can go and purchase them. You can go step by step and not have everything done at once. And sometimes it's the best way to go. I don't know. Sometimes things grow really nicely, and like we were saying before, you kind of fall in love with that process. So it's nice.
Okay, so for the processes, after the design was done, what was the very first step you had to take in getting this installation done?
So once we have the design, right? So just ripping out everything, right? That's the messiest part of the whole project. Is we have a big dumpster delivered here in the asphalt. We don't try to bring that into your driveway because on the hot summer it might do some damage. So we want to put everything outside, and this is where the biggest part of the job is done. I mean, we just clear out the whole front yard like we did here.
I'm going to show you a before picture. This is the before picture, and now this is the after. So there was a bit of grass that had to be pulled out.
So when we were talking about machineries that we use, I don't think it's enough just to have a sod cutter. Now, depending on the grass you have, if it's green and it's full, you can use a sod cutter to kind of make your job easier. But I would still highly recommend to scrape everything off with a mini skid steer. With, I don't know what you're working with, but it could be a shovel or something. You have to scrape these roots off. Even though it's hard to maintain a green grass, it's actually pretty hard to kill it.
Yeah.
So you don't want it coming back. So that demolition process is just removing everything about 3 to 4 inches.
Oh, wow.
So we have to go deep enough to really scrape everything off so we don't have things growing up.
Now, for the homeowners that want to do it themselves and are thinking, okay, I can do this, the cost of disposal.
Yeah.
I don't think homeowners, especially when they see bids come in for removal, they're like, oh, you're just taking away my grass.
Yeah. So there's some services like waste management that if you can show a proof of residence to your property, they'll send in for a big discount, a big disposal for landscaping.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, but they only give you about one. So depending on what you're working with, I don't know if they'll give you 2.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the biggest expense in our projects, is just clearing everything out. So that includes the machinery we use, having someone that knows how to drive that machinery, the disposal, the dumpsters, those, they weigh them by the ton. So if you can help your landscaper or yourself, I would, as soon as you get approved for a rebate or anything like that, I would stop watering your lawn.
Because you don't want to pay for disposing of all your water.
Yeah, you don't want the extra weight. The delivery averages from $300 to $200 just for the disposal, and they'll add $50 to $60 or $70 for every ton you put in.
Okay, so once the demolition is done, another thing that I've noticed a lot of homeowners don't even think about, because I go in and they're asking me to solve the problem afterwards, is the grading. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on grading?
There's certain spots you don't want to avoid. Like when you have a really noticeable slope, if it rains on, depending on what the material you have, if it's mulch, even rock, I would say, if it rains, it will wash out the mulch. If you have a heavy slope and you didn't grade that. If you have gravel, if it snows and it packs in there, it'll move it down because it gets heavy. Yeah. So I mean, I always see a heavy slope, I always would recommend a retaining wall. If you have grass, you don't really struggle with that issue because it just absorbs everything and it's not going to move grass because it's in there.
Right.
But once you get rid of your grass, that's something to think about, is the rain and the snow you get in. It's going to move everything. When it comes to like something like this, when you don't have a lot of slope, it does look nice if everything's not the same level because it looks natural.
Right.
But with heavy slopes, you need to figure out a way to have the water directed outward so it doesn't pool in certain spots.
So you kind of have to know what to look for and know what you're doing to understand whether or not needs to be any grading done.
Exactly. And I recommend dry creeks that we've installed. We don't have one here, but directing the water through those really helps out, kind of draining everything out, keeping everything looking natural, because you don't want to make it just look so flat. Yeah.
And make sure that the water is directed away from your window wells.
Away from your window wells, and never try to contain water. Try to give it a way out.
So once you've removed everything and you've made sure that the grading is the way that you want it to be, what is the next step?
Then the job gets a lot easier. So that's the fun part. We get the plants going, we make the order of, let's say we're working with a design, so we go give that to our vendor or our nursery, and they build that up and they send it, or either we go get it. These plants, depending on the temperature you have, it's okay to have them delivered as long as you water them, and what I mean is not planted immediately, as long as you water them and keep them in the shade. If the temperatures are really hot, like they were this year, they need to be planted the same day.
Yeah.
They need to be planted the same day, and you can
So
show,
you need to have plants.
yeah.
Let's show you what happens here.
This is what happens when you make them wait a little bit too much. We'll be replacing that one, but yeah, it can get hot here in Utah, so you got to move
Show 'em
quick.
what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, over there, huh?
Yeah, let me scroll in a little bit here. Yeah, it's supposed to be blue, not brown.
When it comes to planting, you have the plants installed, and that whole day, if you couldn't install the drip system or have it ready, you have to make sure you water it before the landscaper leaves or you finish your day, just so they have enough water, because they're going to be in shock.
Yeah.
So we just need to help them establish. But either that day or the next, the drip system. We installed the drip system.
How do you know if their normal irrigation system is going to work or if you have to have it redone?
So that's the one thing that we were talking about in the beginning, that it's almost considered non-conventional landscaping when it comes to Utah, because xeriscaping is considered a new idea here in the valley. So a lot of things, or something that we see a lot, is just old sprinkler systems connected into sprinklers. That same valve is connected into drip systems, a garden box. And I mean, it works, it gets water there, but it doesn't really save water. The thing that's gonna, the item that's gonna do the biggest change is that pressure reducer installed to that valve. That pressure reducer is gonna reduce all the water the city's giving to you, and that is actually gonna make it a legitimate drip system. So you're gonna save water that way.
So they need to look at their irrigation and make sure it's appropriate for what they're going to be installing.
Yeah, that's the only way you're saving water, really, is if you're installing a pressure reducer. If you're installing drip off of a normal valve that used to feed into grass, you have the same amount of water coming out. So it's not really a drip system, it's just designated.
Well, and it destroys the system sometimes. If there's no pressure reducer, you can blow out your system.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great point that we look into. We also are aware that these projects are not the cheapest.
Yeah, and irrigation could be one of the more expensive if you're not doing a ton of hardscape.
Yeah, so the way we stay competitive is that we like to, if your system, and we notice it's a PVC and it's not that old and it doesn't have that many leaks, we feel comfortable in giving you a bid for transforming that system you had into a drip system.
Yeah.
So what that means is that we go in to what you already have, that main line, into the valves, and we change your valves, but we work with the same PVC line that you had from the city.
And just so that I can interject, when I do my designs, when I talk to the clients, if it's possible to have them turn on their irrigation, I have them turn it on, and then in my mind and on my paperwork, I map the zones so that you guys don't have to go in and completely retrench and redo.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do as well. It's just we want to make sure, what can we use here? We like to work on with what you already have. Sometimes we'll meet with owners that they still want to work with their system that they believe works, and we have to be honest and say, I don't feel comfortable enough to work on this, because one, I can't put a warranty on it.
Right.
If I'm working off of an existing system, and if it fails, which I think it will, if it's kind of already a little bit janky, I just can't come back and switch things out for free. So it might be more expensive than you originally thought. So I would recommend to.
And I have to say, this is so important.
Yeah.
I've had clients come back to me like, my landscaper's trying to rip me off. I have a perfectly good irrigation system and they're charging me X amount of money to replace it. Why are they doing that? And if you have a good landscaper like you, I'm going to say, if you don't do it, you're going to end up paying a lot more than you did before, because you're going to have to go rip out your landscape and redo the irrigation. Why not just do it in the beginning if it needs it?
Well, it's tough too. You know, sometimes you have your sod and your grass, and you can rarely see something leak like that, because the grass does such a good job of absorbing everything. But when you have mulch and gravel, you can immediately spot a leak, because it's going to put some water in that, and it's not really going to go anywhere super fast. So a lot of the times that's a conversation we have with our clients, is just, I'm going to quote you for an existing system, assuming it works. When we rip out certain things, obviously anything we break, we rework and install, but sometimes there's leaks that you're not even aware of. But a good landscaper should be able to help you out through that process. It shouldn't be a nightmare. It shouldn't be just tough. It should be fairly simple to kind of go through that process. I mean, if you don't have a galvanized system and you have just an old system, they shouldn't really have to quote you for a complete new system. They just have to give you a new installation. Yeah. Let's think about it, that a lot of these PVC lines that were here in this lawn, we're not using. The only PVC that we're using really is the sleeves underneath the concrete here in the parking strip. Those we're reusing so we can have access to them. But everything else that was feeding into the grass is canceled. So yeah. From the valve, we have the drip system coming out, and we're using only the sleeves. And if you have a galvanized system, how a lot of houses here in Utah have, it's time to change it. There's some areas of your landscape project that you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do with plants. You can, if the bid is too high for plants, you can think, oh, maybe I can plant some myself, or maybe I can change the variety, or I don't have to get that many plants, I can just install them throughout the years. Those are areas you can save. And here I would recommend with someone you can trust to help you out and be honest with you with what you're really looking at here. Yeah.
The irrigation system really probably needs to be looked at before they plant their plants, right? Yeah. And then the drip lines can be added afterwards.
Yeah, I guess we skipped that one a little bit, but we usually have the drip system already with the valve installed at least. So when we install the plants, then the drip system comes in. Okay,
so we've got irrigation, we've got the plants. What about hardscape?
Hardscape. And,
where is that in the process? When should that be done in the process? You know, materials, you know, that's where you can start spending up to the sky limit of money.
Yeah, yeah. It depends.
Let's go look at this path that you installed over here too while we talk about it.
Perfect. It depends really what you want to get installed. Sometimes we do the hardscapes at the beginning, just so we can have, if there's any drip lines underneath it like there is here, we had to work the drip lines first so they can get across this chat gravel path. It just depends. If any patios or anything like that, you'll most likely want to get that done when the land leveling comes in. So you can kind of rework, and you have big materials, rocks and everything, so you don't want to be moving those around too much when the plants are installed.
Well, and I'd like that you said, and I'd like to emphasize that if you're going to have hardscape, this is where the design comes in. If you're going to have hardscape, you need to know where the irrigation is going to go, because you don't want to put in all the irrigation
and then work around it.
Yeah, you want to know where or put in the hardscape and then realize you have to dig that up or take it apart because you need to, you know, redo the irrigation. So it helps to know. So I love it. So what is the material that you used on here?
So this is chat gravel. It's the most affordable material we like to recommend if you're on a budget. This chat gravel, it's almost delivered like sand. So it looks like pea gravel, but it has a chemical in it that helps everything compact really well. So now it can move like that, but I mean,
it's solid.
Solid. And we hope that's the, you can see in areas that are getting more traffic or water, it's going to compact and compact throughout the season.
Yeah.
So this is the way it is now. This is a new installation, so it has a lot of work to kind of settle in. Sometimes we like to use a compacting machine if the owners really want that not to move anywhere.
Yeah.
But hopefully in the future they'll be able to leaf blow over this when this compacts enough.
Yeah, I had a chat path installed on my property, and they did compact it really heavily. And I allow the kids in my neighborhood to come in with their bikes. You know, I've drug heavy, you know, like slides over it that are full of like stumps. And you can't tell, there's no divots, you can't tell, you know, the kids, even when they screech to a halt with their bikes, it doesn't leave a mess.
Well, that's the thing though. I think it's important to ask how well compacted you want the chat gravel to be.
Yes. How are
So,
you going to use it?
yeah.
What's going to be done there?
How are you going to use it? What's going to be done in that area? This area doesn't get a lot of traffic, so they didn't really want the most compacted material there.
Yeah, there's going to be no problem. They're probably not going to use this in the winter, so they don't need to shovel it or anything.
And I'll be honest, I mean, sometimes, and again, I understand that sometimes we're trying to be reasonable about how we spend our money with this, but this is a natural, it's considered a natural path. So as they didn't get it compacted well enough, it'll last, but it will move a little bit. So if you're thinking about an area that's going to get a ton of traffic, I wouldn't skip using pavers or anything like that. Concrete.
Or some place where you're going to shovel, use during the winter. Yeah.
If it's the main access and you know you're going to be there and there's going to be a lot of traffic there, you have to go with the more long-lasting product. And
unfortunately, a little more expensive, but in my opinion, it's less expensive because you're not going to have to replace it or redo it in the future.
Yeah, you don't have to get any maintenance on it as well, and I agree, you don't have to get it redone or anything like that, so less maintenance.
Do you use weed barrier under the stone mulch? Because you've got absolutely gorgeous stone mulch here.
Yeah, we've done it with and without it. If I could recommend, and if it were my house, I wouldn't skip it. And we've learned that weeds love a well-compacted soil. So when we add gravel into that and push everything down, it's just a party in there for weeds. So we just want to think ahead and for the future. And the other thing is getting someone to give you a quote for maintenance for pulling weeds by hand on a gravel system. Yeah. Either they won't give you a quote or it'll be quite pricey. No one wants to get on their knees in a hot summer on the gravel. So I would recommend to put weed barrier down in the gravel areas.
Well, perfect. Well, I'm so thankful that you were here and talked to me about this, and look at this landscape. I love your installations. They're clean, they're done well. One last thing really quick. I'm noticing your edging. That's one thing that I think some people don't think about between like different mulch types, and then there's so many different types of edging. What are your thoughts on the edging?
So that's a big point that we've had to learn as well as we go. We never use the plastic one just because it gets hot and it just shifts and moves around, and it never really quite looks good. So we don't use plastic edging, and now the decision will be if you want to use metal edging or aluminum.
Okay.
Some people, they have a welder here and then they'll get to work, but I mean those are super pricey. Yeah. You shouldn't be seeing a lot of this edging and have it be so prominent unless it's a retaining wall or something like that. So we like to use the aluminum edging instead of the metal. I think it's twice as expensive as aluminum edging, and you're seeing the same amount of it. Okay. And it looks very similar. We like to use aluminum. You can flex it better. You can move it around better. The reason why we use edging is because with the strong winds we have in Utah, you'll have the mulch kind of fly into the gravel. It's back and forth a little bit if you have fine gravel. So you want to keep things tidy and in place. So it's the plants and trees that really make it pop, and not just the whole mess of it.
Okay, well, thanks again for coming in and talking about all of this. Take time out of your busy schedule, because landscapers have busy schedules.
No, no problem. I love this, and
Yeah.
thank you for having me. We really like what we do, and we love working with you. So it's a
Good.
fun
I
time.
love working with you guys.
It's a fun
So I'm
time.
going to link Rod's information down below, Utah Wildflower Company. Excellent. You guys do maintenance too, right?
We do. We do maintenance. It involves manually pulling weeds.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fall
You don't do it, but I'm sorry for your crew.
cleanup, spring cleanup, and they'll have me do it sometimes. So, but yeah, we do maintenance, but the majority of our work is renovations.
Yeah.
That's the biggest part of what we do.
Okay, well, great. Well, I'll link your information down below, and hopefully this video has been helpful for you guys. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Go have a wonderful garden adventure.